I remember the first time I realized I didn't really know him. It was a rainy evening in New York City, and I was sitting on the couch in my small apartment in Brooklyn, staring at the cup of tea I had forgotten to drink. My name is Claire, and for months I had believed I knew everything about Adam. I thought I could read him like a book, that every laugh, every word, every glance was truth. I was wrong. We met at a coffee shop in Greenwich Village. He was charming, easy to talk to, and had a way of making the world feel smaller when he was around. I liked that about him. I liked that he seemed so steady while I was constantly thinking too much. We spent afternoons wandering the streets, discovering little bookstores, listening to street musicians, talking about our dreams. It felt effortless, or at least it did at first. At first, the cracks were small, barely noticeable. A late reply here, a canceled plan there. I thought it was just life, just busy schedules. But slowly, little things added up. I noticed the way he avoided certain topics, the way he laughed a little too quickly when I asked something personal. I started questioning my instincts. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was being paranoid. One evening, after a week of silence from him, I decided to ask the questions I had been holding back. I wanted honesty. I wanted clarity, but the answers I got only made me more confused. His words were careful, polite, but somehow distant. It was the first time I felt the weight of a truth I could not yet name. I realized that the person I thought I knew was different from the person he really was, and that difference was quietly pulling us apart. I spent the next few nights walking alone through the city streets, listening to the hum of traffic and the soft patter of rain on the sidewalks. I thought about all the small moments, the shared smiles, the conversations that had felt so natural. And then I thought about the moments that felt off, the ones that had seemed insignificant until now. It was strange how love could make you blind to the parts of someone that don't quite fit, until suddenly they're all you can see. It hurt, but it also made me see something I had been ignoring. I had been so focused on him that I had forgotten to look at myself. I had given so much of my attention and energy to figuring him out that I had stopped noticing what I needed, what I wanted, who I was. That realization was both terrifying and liberating. Learning to navigate this kind of heartbreak is not about dramatic confrontations or big revelations. It is quiet and slow. It is the small moments where you remind yourself that your feelings are valid, where you allow yourself to feel hurt without judgment, and where you begin to notice the parts of your life that belong only to you. It is noticing the sunlight on your apartment floor, the smell of coffee in the morning, the comfort of your own voice when you speak aloud. I began asking myself questions I had never allowed before. What do I truly want in a partner? What does honesty look like to me? And more importantly, how do I recognize it when it is absent? These questions were uncomfortable, but they were necessary. I realized that some people are never meant to stay, not because you failed or they failed, but because they were never fully aligned with your truth. I remember the night I decided to step back completely. I stopped chasing texts, stopped overthinking every pause, stopped looking for hidden meanings in things that did not exist. I focused instead on myself. I spent hours reading, walking through Central Park, noticing the little details I had overlooked in the city, in people, and in myself. I began to realize that my value was not tied to someone else's understanding of me. Healing in this kind of heartbreak does not happen overnight. It happens in fragments. It happens in moments when you choose not to reply to a text, in moments when you let yourself cry, and in moments when you finally laugh at something small that has nothing to do with anyone else. I started finding peace in the little things. A song I loved, a message from a friend, the smell of rain. These moments reminded me that life still has beauty, even when someone I loved does not. Eventually, I reached a point where I could think about Adam without feeling that sharp ache of confusion or betrayal. I realized that the person I thought I knew was never fully mine to know, and in that understanding, I found freedom. Freedom to stop overanalyzing, freedom to stop apologizing for feelings I should not have had to hide. Freedom to be myself without explanation. But the journey did not end there. I realized that understanding someone else's true self is only half the lesson. The other half is understanding yourself. I started paying attention to the subtle ways I had silenced my own voice to accommodate his moods. I noticed how I had reshaped my life around someone who was not fully present. That insight hurt more than any lie or hidden truth. Because for months, I had given away pieces of myself for a love that never truly matched my reality. I remember a particular evening when I sat on the fire escape, the city humming beneath me, and thought about all the moments I had ignored my intuition, the times I had sensed something was off but dismissed it, the times I had laughed at jokes that did not land just to avoid tension. The times I had wondered if I was too sensitive or too critical, and then I realized I was not wrong. My feelings were real, my doubts valid, and my perception was not flawed. After that night, I began setting small boundaries. I decided not to tolerate ambiguity, not in texts, not in promises, not in emotions. I started listening to my own reactions instead of excusing them. I practiced saying no when I needed to, without guilt. Every time I did, I felt a quiet strength building inside me. I had started reclaiming the part of myself that had been lost in the fog of trying to know someone else completely. I also started noticing the little joys I had forgotten. I would wake early to watch the sunlight hit the rooftops, drink my coffee slowly while listening to music, notice how a stranger smiled at me on the street. These small moments became reminders that life is still vibrant, still meaningful, even when love is complicated or incomplete. I began to feel alive again, not because of Adam, but because I had returned to myself. I spent more time with friends, really listening to them and sharing my own heart without fear of judgment. I realized that community and connection are not just for happiness. They are anchors when your own emotions feel heavy. I started talking openly about my experiences with heartbreak, and I found that vulnerability could be liberating. There was something powerful about sharing without needing approval, about simply existing in my truth. I also started noticing Adam differently, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I understood that he was a person shaped by his own fears, insecurities, and past experiences. He was not cruel or malicious, just not capable of the kind of honesty and openness I needed. Understanding that allowed me to release anger and resentment slowly, replacing it with a quiet compassion that surprised me. I remember a day when I stumbled upon a street musician playing a song that reminded me of the early days with Adam. My first instinct was to feel a pang of sadness, but then I let myself smile. I realized I could hold both the memory and my present peace at the same time. That day, I understood that closure is not a moment. It is a series of moments where you choose yourself over old illusions. I want to say this to anyone listening. The person you thought you knew may not be who they appeared to be. That does not make your feelings wrong or your love wasted. It means you were brave enough to invest your heart, and in return, You learned something invaluable about yourself. You learned to trust your instincts, to honor your emotions, and to recognize that your peace is worth more than anyone else's approval. I created the Quiet Heart Room as a space for reflection and healing, a place where you can sit quietly with your thoughts, process emotions without judgment, and slowly find your way back to yourself. You do not have to rush your feelings. You do not have to hide them. You can simply be. Thank you for taking this time with me today. If this story resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe. Share your thoughts in the comments and return whenever you need a quiet space to process your own feelings. This is your safe place. This is the Quiet Heart Room.